So Katie Britt's response to the State of the Union was nothing but white woman tears wrapped up in hypocrisy and creepy ass smiles. And Katie Britt was a lawyer who was Richard Shelby's chief of staff. And here Tommy Tuberville, our wonderful other senator, is on record saying, well, she was picked as a housewife because the left is against families. So this lawyer who is a former senator's chief of staff is allowing herself to be whittled down to nothing more than a housewife by the party who is against identity politics. And that story she told about the Mexican lady who was trafficked by the cartel, she acted like it just now happened, even though it happened 20 years ago when George W. Bush was president. And she said, that should not be happening. You know what? It should not have been. And what I also think about is that that woman is a perfect example of somebody who would need asylum, and conservatives want to completely shut down the border, not allow anybody in. That's what Mike Johnson said. So conservatives want that victim today to remain in Mexico. And Katie Britt said, you know, that could have been my daughter. You know what it could have been? It could have been anybody's daughter. And what I think about is that we are in Alabama, and if something like that did happen to her daughter or anybody's daughter, and their daughter ended up pregnant, she would be forced to carry the baby to term because that's just God's will. But did y'all hear this story that she told?
I'll never forget stopping at a gas station in Chilton County one evening. The gentleman working the counter told me that after retiring, he had to pick up a job in his 70s so that he didn't have to choose between going hungry or going without his medication.
Katie, so does that mean that you support the Inflation Reduction Act that caps prescription drug costs for seniors at $2,000 a year? Because conservatives want to repeal it, and even though you weren't a senator when it passed, every single Republican voted against it, including both of Alabama senators, Tommy Tuberville, and your predecessor, Richard Shelby, that you were chief of staff for. So do you really care about people having to choose between food and medication, or are you just using this as some kind of political gotcha as you actively vote against helping the people you say you are trying to help? Now, you represent Alabama, Katie, and the same exact week that you got on national TV and used Lifetime movie dialect to talk about how people had to choose between food and medication, a state representative in Alabama who is a conservative and owns a pharmacy introduced this bill. Is that going to help that man in Chilton County, Katie, who had to take a job in his 70s because he didn't want to have to choose between food and medication? That's not Joe Biden, Katie. That's not the left. That is your state. That is your party. Constantly bitching about something while making the situation worse and sabotaging solutions. Hallelujah and roll tide.